Hello traders, Steve Gans here. Building on the whole discussion of chance of profit or probability of profit, I've done two prior videos on this number here and exactly what that number means and what that number does not take into account. And very briefly, it doesn't take into account chart patterns or technical analysis. It doesn't take into account fundamental analysis, and it doesn't take into account how we as options traders know how to modify and adjust our positions. So those were all in the prior videos. Go back and take a look at those if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to have a discussion about a couple final things that I think are really important here. So I trade many times a butterfly trade, a broken wing butterfly. In this case, the upper spread is a little bit different spread than the lower spread. What that does for me is if I look at expiration, that gives me a structure that is like this. Now, this trade, you'll notice, only has right now a 17% chance of profit. That's not great. Most people, if you were looking at that number, you'd look at that and you say, yeah, okay, that's not a trade for me. But a couple things that you need to keep into mind is that the upside of this trade, first of all, that chance of profit is only at expiration and only when I put this trade on today. That would be that low chance of profit. But the factors that are not taken into account there are my upside in this. I only have a $50 loss in this current configuration to the upside. And if I wanted to adjust this trade just slightly, maybe break that wing a little bit further, look at that. I can now move the chance of profit in this trade to a 67% chance of profit because I have no risk to the upside here. So the takeaway here is a very minor move can have a big impact in that chance of profit. And also keep in mind that just because you're not profitable up here, if your loss is so minimal, is that really a factor? And particularly since, as in episode 2 on probability of profit, I talked about how I easily adjust the trade during its life. If the market does move up here, I simply roll this wing in a little bit, and then I have profitability as far as I want to go to the upside. Keep in mind that just because your probability of profit is low, you could also have a scenario like this where your loss can be very minimal to start with, and this can be a great position to start this trade in, even though it has a low probability of profit. One other thing that's important to look at here is, again, probability of profit is at expiration. I trade these butterflies. I don't take them to expiration. I'll take them maybe halfway through, maybe a little more. So let's look at this trade as you get a little over halfway through this trade. Our T0 line shows us that we have a very wide range all of a sudden. We're going from 63.45 to 65.87. That's a 230-point wide range where this trade is profitable as we get 22 days into it. So don't let a low probability of profit, you can see it's still showing at 17%, but that is at expiration. So unless you're fully carrying your trade all the way to expiration, you really need to move your sliders here and see how this reacts at different points during the trade. In other words, a much, much wider range during certain parts of this trade. And also volatility. If volatility drops, that could even further widen out my range. So at the end of the day, I just don't want people looking at probability of profit without taking all these extra things I've shared with you into consideration. So hopefully you have found this useful. If you have, give me a thumbs up, a like, subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to share them below as well. Thanks and take care, everyone.